All right, so the important thing to understand is that, again, rather than diving into running a marathon, we took some steps backwards and we focused on the preparation, the understanding, the planning, etc., and setting ourselves up for success. Same with nutrition, we took those steps backwards. We asked some questions, we got some tools in our tool belt, we've been getting proficient with those tools. Once we are ready to get up to that start line and take some steps forward, your mindset at that point should not be that I am running a marathon and that I've got to finish and that my success depends on my time for finishing that marathon. The perspective that you need to have is that you are practicing your nutrition. That race isn't even necessarily the race. It's not the end all be all. It's a chance to take everything that you've prepared and put it into practice and see how it goes. So in that way, running that marathon is still practice actually. And the same with nutrition. Once we cross that start line, this is a chance to put it all together, to press play, to get moving, and to see how it all works, understanding that we're there for the feedback, that we're there for the practice, that we are there to get a better understanding of ourselves, and that is the ultimate goal. So a couple things that I would suggest that you consider. One is your timeline. A lot of people have very short timelines when it comes to nutrition. We talked about how tracking things and monitoring things will help you have more patience with the process. But just understand, most people recognize that it took them years, if not decades, to dig themselves into a hole with their nutrition. And it's going to take some time to come out of that. At the same time, whether or not you are digging yourself out of a hole or getting yourself out of a hole that you've dug, just consider the fact that healing takes time, that nutrition is a process, and that real lasting change doesn't necessarily happen overnight in most situations. So for me personally, I've had to throw a lot of things against the wall with limited things actually sticking. I've had to kind of play the tug of war game with myself. There's been times when I haven't been so great and times when I've been really good, but I made that consistent progress forward. And the important thing to realize is where your baseline is. If the worst you can do with your nutrition is getting better, then that's what we're really after. I'm not necessarily worried about what was your best day and how great was that one single day. What I'm worried about is how bad does your worst get, and if it doesn't get that bad, then things are progressing at, I would say, in a very real fashion. Your first plan is not going to be your last plan, so of course life changes, but also as you are establishing your kind of rules for yourself and answering all the questions that we talked about earlier and getting proficient with these tools, you're going to take a stab at this and then you're going to see problems that you're going to have to fix and make rules around. You're going to have understandings about yourself, and things are going to change. And so be ready to adapt your plan as well. How to know if it's not working? You'll, of course, you'll notice things symptomatically. For example, you should be doing testing on a regular basis. Professional oversight is going to help point out when things aren't going well for you, the things that you've measured, the numbers that you're tracking, etc. But plateaus are another thing as well. So sometimes when you're making great progress and then things kind of come to a halt, that's a good time to stop and reflect and say, okay, what am I doing wrong here? What isn't working, or what am I missing? But not always. Again, everybody's different, and you should approach things from an individual perspective. Sometimes a plateau just means you need time, right? Sometimes you just need to spend some time at that level before your body naturally moves to the next level. Food quality, I didn't really dig into this with this kind of series of topics here, but always make sure you're focused on food quality. So we talked about food timing, we talked about micronutrients and macronutrients. Micronutrient value is big with food quality, but also just considering things like making sure that the food is sourced well, that it's treated well, that it arrives to you in good condition. Try out new recipes. This is something people really try and get by without. It doesn't make any sense. Everyone has, granted they don't just always eat out, everyone has kind of a fairly small subset of recipes that they use in meals that they eat. if you can just make it a habit to try a new recipe every once in a while, eventually one of those recipes is going to be delicious. You're going to love it. You're going to want that food. And so at that point, it naturally gets into your regular rotation. And something that's not so great can kind of easily fall out until pretty soon you'll have a natural rotation. Your kind of subset of 10 or 15 meals or recipes that you make are actually all really healthy. They still taste great. You crave them. You look forward to eating them. They're enjoyable, but they're super healthy for you. And so that's really just a matter of branching out, trying some new things, and finding stuff that you like. I promise you can be. It won't take any more energy or emotional strain from you. In fact, it'll be a huge relief slash outlet if you can enjoy eating, if you can have those meals, and then also know in the back of your head that they're actually really good for you. That's a pretty amazing experience to have. Not a cook, in some ways that can be even better for you, because sometimes the best stuff to be eating isn't stuff that takes a whole lot of preparation. Me personally, my criteria is that it has to be super easy and super healthy and not take a long time. And I'm not a cook, so I don't like to put big elaborate meals together for myself, which just means that I've had to find certain things that meet that criteria, and it works. Staples, everybody's going to have some staples. These you could think of like auxiliary things with your nutrition, where apple cider vinegar, for example. A lot of people know the benefits of that. It's not as easy to get into a meal, but it can be one of those kind of nutritional things where you just get into a habit where every day you take a shot of apple cider vinegar. And for me, bone broth is one of those. I pretty much always have a batch of bone broth going here at the house. And so pretty much every day I can drink a cup of bone broth. Very nutrient dense. I do very well with it. Great for the gut, etc. So, it's just kind of a staple. Anyways, and then, there's a variety of things here. I won't spend forever on them, but, routines is important with your food. You might not recognize it, but a lot of people have unhealthy routines around food. And if you change those routines, it'll change your entire experience. So sometimes you didn't like the meal because it didn't fit your routine. I don't want to get too high level with it, but just consider those things. And a support system. With nutrition or other health changes, it's almost always vital to have a support system of some sort, around. Let's see here. Breaks and recovering from breaks. This is a tricky one. I want to be realistic here, but at the same time maintain the ideal. So usually what happens is people want to know, when can I take a break? If you're doing it right, you shouldn't feel like you need to take a break. Like I said, you should have foods that are delicious and appealing to you that can give you that emotional relief without compromising your health. But that might take a little bit more work. Maybe you're traveling, maybe there's a party or something like that, and you're looking, and you're wanting to just not have to worry about it. I totally understand. Ideally, you wouldn't take a break until certain things are resolved, certain disease processes. If you are insulin resistant, meaning your blood sugar does not reset very well after eating, carbohydrate or something, then that is definitely something you should address before taking a break. Those are just some examples. If you're trying to heal and recover from something, taking steps backwards is, of course, not a great idea. But if you're in relatively good shape, you can definitely afford every once in a while to not have to stress so much about your food or not worry about it. If you did take a break, whether it was by choice or not, there's a number of things you can do to kind of get back on track. One, I like to do maybe a little bit of detox, maybe take some activated charcoal or something to help kind of push the garbage through and make it have less of an impact on the body. Fasting is a great way to recover from taking a break. And also just kind of resetting your diet. So going back to the beginning when you were maybe most strict on your diet, spending a few days there, and then maybe just kind of retracing your steps. So maybe with your nutrition, you're 6 months into it, you've made a lot of great progress. Your nutrition is a bit different than when you started, because you started, in a very kind of more intense regime, right? A much more strict regime. Well, maybe if you took a break for a day and just really went crazy with things, maybe you go all the way back to the beginning, and you don't necessarily have to take 6 months to get back to where you were, but maybe you kind of spend a few days in each of those phases, right? And just make things a little bit more, just kind of retrace those steps. And that's a great way to kind of get your body back, to take some steps back, to follow those, to trace your path, and then get your body back into kind of the groove of things. This is something, of course, again, very unique to the individual. So just as far as a final goes, in fact, I'm going to wait and put this on the next video.